Good morning, folks. We're back out at Dad's shop again today, and I got a couple more lanterns to work on out here today. The first one I brought out because I wanted to put this in a video, but I know it's not going to take more than a few minutes to get this one going, so we'll get this one cleaned up a little bit and lit and burning, and then I'm going to clean up the second one that I brought out today. So the first one, this is a Paul's large fount number 2. I didn't really look it up to see what the date was, but I'm guessing this is 1920s. Just by the design of it and everything. That's a common design for that time frame. But somebody's spray painted it silver, or I don't know if they spray painted it, actually they might have brush painted it, but painted it silver. I don't know why everybody wanted to paint their lantern silver, but I'm just going to clean it up good the way it is. I may eventually strip all the paint off of this and clean it up even better in the future, but for right now, I'm going to give this a quick cleanup. We'll put some fuel in it and light it up. I don't think it's going to take much anything to get this one going. And then this one is a Winfield, and it is a glass fount. It's got a glass little jar that goes inside the fount that holds your fuel. I bought this at the same auction last summer where I bought that John Deere hit and miss engine that I did some videos on and resold that engine. But I never had a glass fount. This one's missing. There's supposed to be a wire bail that goes into these little... Here, let's scoot you in a little closer. There's supposed to be a wire bail that goes right into these little holes here in the air tubes and comes around the middle to hold that in there. I may try manufacturing one of those at some point in the future. I did have a guy on the lantern group sent me some pictures of one that he's got. But for today, I'm not gonna get too carried away with that. I'm gonna try to gently crimp these little holders. It's got a weird round bail that just goes right in right here. I'm pretty sure the bail does actually stick clear into the tube, but these little parts that come out past the side of the air tube here on both sides are split. I'm going to try to crimp them back shut a little bit, but I'm not going to get too carried away with it because this one's going to get cleaned up good, and I'm going to put this one on a shelf in my house after I burn a tank of fuel through it. I've got a shelf in my bedroom at home that's got an old Embry air pilot on it that I'm gonna, the base of the air pilot is actually a little bit too wide for the shelf and hangs out over the edge. So I'm gonna take that down, and this has got a nice narrow base on it. So once I burn a tank of fuel through this, it'll go in there and can live in the house where it's climate controlled. I'd hate to see that glass fount crack. You'd probably never find one. I don't think they make any replacements of those. We're going to start out with the old Paul's leader, number 2 big fount. We'll take it apart, clean it up a little bit. Like I said, I might do a video on this later on. I would kind of like to strip all the paint off of this, but it's already been sitting around out in my garage for several months since I bought it because I wanted to put it in a video to first light it up. It's got unmarked glass, but you can tell it's definitely an old glass. I don't know if it's original or if it's a replacement. I don't know if this would have came with a marked globe in it or not. You got the old silver paint gobbed on pretty thick, but we'll see if the burner will pop out of here. You can hear Leo down there. He's chewing on the same bone that he was chewing on in the video of the avocado Sears lantern. Ooh, that is kind of growed together. It's got to turn. There we go. I got to turn just a little bit. It's got the little tabs that go in there to lock that down. So you got to turn a little bit and then it'll pop right out. Got plenty of wick. I'll trim the end of that wick so it's nice and straight across, but it's the old wick with the red down both sides of it. The inside of the tank is shiny. Looks real good. I'll get the borescope camera and pop it down in there real quick, but that is very shiny inside. Okay, let's poke the borescope down in here. It looks shiny and clean in there. That's looking across from the fill cap towards the other side. Looks pretty darn, oh, that's kind of neat. Pretty darn clean. You can see the bottom side of the large fount number 2. You can see where the stamps there on the bottom side of it. That's kind of neat. But the bottom looks pretty good. There's a couple little rust spots, but I don't think it's anything that's going to be an issue. Now I can't get back out of there. There we go. Get that back out of there. Still got the cork cap gasket on the inside of the original mica, or not mica, what do they call that? Bakelite, the original Bakelite cap. Always glad when you find a Paul's lantern when it's still got the original Bakelite cap on it. Hit this with just a little bit of glass cleaner here. I'm not getting carried away on this one. It's going to get a quick wiping down, a little bit of fuel in it, and we'll light it up. Try to get it pretty close to straight across so that it burns a nice shaped flame. This poor old razor blade's about needing to be retired. There we go. That's pretty good and straight across. That should burn a nice flame. Now since I haven't pre-soaked this wick, I'm going to crank the wick all the way up. I'm going to put some fuel in here and then I'll take this into the wick, dip it down in there and soak it up, then I'll flip it over, crank it all the way back down and put the other end down in there. That way we don't have to wait very long for it to soak up the wick. Before I put a ton of fuel in there, look at the bottom and see. It usually
pretty clean.
Doesn't take long. I usually see a wet spot pretty darn quick if it's gonna leak. The ones that usually get you that show up later on is if it's seeping around the crimp of the fount somewhere. That's the one that'll show up hours later, but usually a pinhole is pretty evident right away. That'll be plenty of fuel in there. Take the top end of the wick and just poke it down in there, get some fuel on it, and crank it right back down in here. Put the bottom end back down in there. You okay over there? I could hear Dad's stomach grumbling over there. Apparently he needs to go eat something.
I gotta go feed that thing.
Okay, and then we'll put this burner cone back on here. It slides right down over the knob. Go down and then it'll turn just a little bit of a turn. You can see there's that slot there. Turn just a little bit and lock that right in place. Cap and put on there. Stick the glass back in here. It doesn't take very long for the wick to soak up, even if you just put it in there. But if you do it this way, by the time you get the rest of the lantern snapped back together, it's ready to light. This lift mechanism works really nice on this lantern. It's in pretty good shape. Let's see if this thing will light up and how it burns. There we go. Calm down. I was going to blow out the air tubes on this and I did not even do that. So we'll just have to see. We'll see how it goes after it's been burning for several hours. If it starts getting soot on the glass, then you'll know that it needs the burner tubes or the air tubes blown out. It's got a little bit of a wing on one side of the flame over there, but that might just be the corner of the wick's a little higher there. Sometimes after you let them burn the first few hours, they'll burn off if there's a little wisp of that, but that could be just the airflow coming around it, making it do that too. But all in all, that's burning pretty nice. We'll set that one off, just off to the side over here. Yeah, we'll go over this way with it. And then let's get this one apart and cleaned up. I know this one doesn't have a wick in it because it's got a glass fount. And if I hold it up to the light, I can see all the way through there, through the little windows. And there's no wick in there. But I've got extra wicks that are the correct size for this that came out of, was it, I think it was that SG&L square tube lantern and another one. There was two lanterns that I bought and both of them had 3 or 4 wicks in each one of them. So the spare wicks that we fished out of there are the correct size for this. Let's see here. I don't know exactly how this fount comes out of there. Well, it looks like it's barely clipped in there. There's little wires that stick out, or little nubs that stick out off the fount, and they go behind this little wire right here to hold it in place, and they are barely turned in there far enough to hold that. So when we put it back together, we'll make sure we get that. Oh yeah, the one on this side you can really see. It is just barely behind there. So when we get it cleaned up and put it back together, we'll make sure we get that turned a little bit farther so that it can't end up, if this bottom cap comes off of there, that whole fount's going to fall right out the bottom of the lantern, which would not be good. I wonder how. Oh Jesus, yeah, that was barely holding. I don't know what was even holding that in there. Goodness. Ooh. A little rusty. Had some moisture underneath it. we'll clean that up and get some WD-40 in there to keep that from rusting anymore. But that is, I guess I'm lucky because the bottom of it looks really good and there's no pinholes through it, so maybe at some point one time it got wet and got rusty, but it wasn't stored somewhere where it stayed wet and rotted that out, because you'd probably never find another one of those. Since these wire guards are missing around here, this piece just kind of flops around wherever it wants to. I think to get the fount to drop out the bottom, yeah. So it wouldn't just drop the fount out the bottom. To get the fount to come out the bottom, we're gonna have to take this burner cone off of here. Let's get the lantern over, or the camera over here at a different angle. So I wouldn't have to worry about that just falling out the bottom, because we're gonna have to, oh, that was barely on there too. The burner cone on this has no like little lock detents like the other one had. It just slides up off of there. And then the burner, okay, the burner doesn't thread in there either. I was thinking that maybe the burner threaded in the top and that's what was holding that glass from coming out of there, but the burner does not thread in there. It just is tapered and sets down in there. So I guess maybe I was right. If you, yeah, the only thing that would hold that glass fount in there would be this bottom plate, or the fact that that was just wedged in there enough to hold it. So you definitely don't want this bottom coming off of there. When I get it in there, that little post that comes up through there, I'll get it turned to where it's clear over here in the middle of this, instead of, it was literally right on the edge. Somehow, fortunately, this thing never fell out of there in the last 100 years. So we still have our glass fount to put in there. Fuel cap turns. That is a tiny, very fine thread fuel cap on there. This piece is just threaded to the glass, it looks like, but if it doesn't want to move, I'm not going to force it. I wonder, the inside of that glass has got white residue on it. I wonder what would clean that off. We'll start with the outside of it here. We'll get a little bit of glass cleaner. That rust might be a little bit of a pain to get off of there. I wonder if my denatured alcohol would clean off whatever's on the inside of that glass. I don't know what it is. It's a white residue. It makes me think of something that's got hard water lines in it, but this should have never had water in it. It should have just had kerosene in it, so a chunk of something in there. But I don't know how to clean that out good. I don't know if there's something I could put in there to soak that would work good in it. I think I'm going to start out, I'll pause the camera, I'll take it back to the bathroom, and I will run some hot water and soap through it, shake it around, and try to get it cleaned out that way. Then I'll put some denatured alcohol in to rinse all the hot water and soap out of there. And we'll see if that cleans it up at all. Alright, that worked okay. I used some Fast Orange hand cleaner that's got some grit in it. Put that inside, put hot water in it, shook it around. I was able to get my fingers in there and kind of barely touch the sides. I tried to scrub it a little bit. There's still a little bit of residue in there, but It's honestly not going to make much difference. You can see the fount through the little windows in the sides of the lantern fount, but you don't have a good clear view of it. So I believe that will probably be good enough. Speaking of good enough, this lantern is a Winfield good enough lantern.
Oh, really?
That's what they called them, yes. I think it's kind of a funny way of marketing your lantern. Be like,
That's good enough.
it's good enough.
They didn't bother to put a name on it. But...
No, they certainly weren't very proud of it. I'm pretty positive that this black paint on here is not original to this lantern either. But it looks like it's been on there a long time. So I probably will not be removing it. I like the way that this lantern looks, so we're just gonna gently scrub it down with this old Scotch-Brite that's been used and used already, so it's not very aggressive anymore, to get all the build-up dirt off of it. I probably at some point will try to manufacture the guard that's supposed to come from these holes and go around the glass. I'll probably try making one of those. I got some wire at home, that's some stiff heavy wire that's about the right diameter. But for right now, we're just going to give it a cleaning and use it. I'll burn a couple of founts full of fuel through this before I put it on the shelf in my bedroom. I think this will be a good fit in there. And this, with the glass fount, I would much rather have in my climate controlled house. My old Embry Air Pilot will be just fine out in the garage. They're a robust lantern. It's not going to hurt it to be in a non-climate controlled garage. Whoops. Oh, there we go. That popped right off of there. That actually makes that a little easier. I didn't think it would come off of there, but I didn't try very hard because I didn't want to hurt anything. But then when it was cleaned, and I just bumped it off of there. So now that it's off, I'll make it a little easier to get in there and clean everything else up. The auction where I bought this lantern had some lanterns listed, and my father-in-law sent me the sale bill from it. I went to the auction to look at the lanterns that they had on the sale bill, and this one was not even on the sale bill. Actually, the ones that they showed on the sale bill by far were not the best of the bunch that they had there. They were more common. Dietz and Rayo. And I ended up buying 4 lanterns, actually 5 lanterns from that auction. But when I saw this one, it was back behind a bunch of stuff on the hay wagon. and no one else was paying much attention to it, so I picked it up and looked at it quickly and saw what it was and put it right back down where it was and put the other stuff that was in front of it right back in front of it and just walked away and didn't pay much attention to it till time to sell. And the first round of, there were several lanterns there. The first round came up to buy the lanterns, and I started bidding, and I bid it up to $45. So I got first choice of, I think there was 7 or 8 lanterns there. First choice of the lanterns. And I went up and grabbed this one and one other that's going to be in a future video, so I'm not going to say what it is right now. But I grabbed 2 of them right off the bat. And my father-in-law was standing back near where the lady that was bidding against me was, and he said that she was pretty angry that I outbid her and went up and grabbed these first, because she must have seen this and the one other one that I paid the $45 for. She must have seen him there too and had the same idea and was hoping she'd be able to get them real cheap. Which I feel like $45 for this and the other one that I got still is very cheap for what these lanterns are. I'm going to use some WD-40 to clean up the inside of this, which isn't too bad. It's a little rusty, but not bad. And then the bottom of this will. There is. Wonder if that's maybe where the, no? No, there's another spot right there. You can see where these wires come down, they come through there, and there's a little bit of solder to hold them in place. There's another spot right there where something went through there, but I don't know what it was. There definitely, you can see on the bottom, there was something else round that went through there, but I don't know what it was. That's interesting. So if any of you guys know what would have gone through that hole, leave that down in the comments too. Also, if you haven't done so, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I know that about 3/4 of the people watching this video aren't subscribed to the channel. That's where I run. Is about 75% of my views are unsubscribed and 25% are subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It's free for you. It helps us out a lot. Trim this wick off here. There we go, got a fairly straight and flat edge on there. This wick is tight in there. It's almost too wide, but the other wick that I've got is almost too narrow. I'd rather have it fit in there snug and go clear to the edges. So there we go. That's pretty good straight across. Good enough to work, that's for sure. Well, I am going to put some kerosene in here while it's apart. I can just set the funnel right down the center hole there, and we'll get this wick back in there and let it start soaking while I'm putting the rest of the lantern back together. Just sets down in there. Pop my cap back on there. I could see losing this cap real easily. I don't know how it's managed to stay with the lantern for over 100 years. That is a tiny little cap. Set that off to the side here. Before I start putting it back together, we'll give this red glass a cleaning. A lot of collectors don't want to burn their red. That's got WD-40 on it. It's beating up on the glass cleaner. I was like, what's going on here? That's what's going on. A lot of collectors don't want to burn their red or colored globes because sometimes they will get what some collectors call it crizzle. They get kind of a white film on them. I don't know what it is. It's a reaction in the glass from the heat. And sometimes you will have a really nice looking red globe and then you burn it, and when it heats up, it'll get white and cloudy looking. So a lot of collectors don't want to burn their vintage glass, but I go ahead and burn it. I don't burn them cranked up super high. If it does get that, then it's still one that you can use for a user then. But I guess if I had a red lens that was had a embossed name on it, was super nice, maybe I would try to burn something else in the lantern when I burned it. But pretty much I like to use them. I don't want to destroy something old, but I like to actually use it. Typically, you can get away with it if you don't burn the flame cranked up real high. There we go, that looks nicer. That old glass is rough around the bottom, rough around the top, but I'm guessing that's the way it was when it was new. Last thing I'm going to do before I stick this back together is I'm going to get a pair of pliers and try to crimp that back down a little bit there, and then this one is the same way on the other side. So try to close those back up a little bit. But this bail actually does go clear in, and the ends of it are bent over. I know I can't get the camera to show in there, but they are bent over and go down the air tube a little bit so that they can't pop out of there. That worked okay. On the first one I tried, I just took some channel lock pliers and gently reached around here and just pushed that back down a little bit to close up that gap a little. Yeah, that worked. That worked out pretty decent there. I'm not getting too aggressive with it. I kind of took this bale and just bent it a little bit so it's got a little bit of a flat on the bottom, so the parts going through there aren't trying to bend that up. Alright, I'm going to pause the camera and blow out these air tubes so you don't have to listen to the noise of the blowgun, and then we'll throw this thing back together and light it up and see if it'll burn. Well, I got the air tubes blown out, and I was just checking to see if I was going to be able to fit this in here and get it to turn and lock better. And I came up with the realization that I really screwed up by filling this up with oil already, because there's no way I'm going to get this thing put back together right side up and get this thing to twist and lock in place like it needs to. So I think I'm going to have to dump the oil back out of this. Get it put back together, because there's no way I'm going to be able to hold this, try to get this up in there, lined up, and then actually get it to turn, because it does not want to turn easily. I'm going to have to get it where I can get in there and maybe push that wire down with a screwdriver a little bit to get it to turn and lock in place good. So, I guess we're going to drain the fuel back out of here. Yeah, it never occurred to me that I would probably have to flip this upside down to put it back together. Well, just lay that over there. Oh, Jesus.
Need a bigger can?
Okay, let's get this stuck back in here. Probably gonna dribble kerosene on my pants legs now when I'm trying to do this. Got to get these little locking tabs. They go over that stud, push down over there, and then they got to turn a little bit to lock them in place. And I want to get them turned farther than they were before. It's more convenient now with kerosene leaking out while I'm doing it, that's for sure. I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, that's clipped pretty good.
That's got both of these clips so that that little peg sticking out there is a little ways past the edge of that opening.
Better than it was.
Oh yeah, way better than it was. All right. Now, see how much of a mess I can make pouring this back in there. Leo is just going to town on that bone over there.
You need to get some softer bones.
Yeah, some quieter bones to chew on. That last video, the whole way through the video, you can hear him gnawing on that bone. Okay, clean up all my drips and spills here, but you can see, if I wiggle it around a little bit, you can see the fuel through the little windows in the side of the fount. That is pretty cool. That's interesting. I didn't notice that before until now, but this looks like it's supposed to have a burner cone that's got little pins that stick in, and it should turn and lock a little bit, but this burner cone does not have any of those, so I think it'll work fine, but it does look like it was meant to go on there and turn a little bit to lock. But it lines right up good and everything, so I don't think it'll be an issue. Like I said, this lantern's never going to have to be outside hanging, banging around in the breeze or anything, so I don't think it's going to be any issue. Now let's see here. We'll get this. It really wasn't supposed to come out of there, but did when I was trying to clean it. We'll get that squirmed back up in there. Find the right combination where it wants to fit back over there. There we go. There's that. It really didn't matter what position I put it on there in, because it'll turn a full turn, because it doesn't have the side guide wires on there that it's supposed to have. So I guess we'll just go ahead and light it before I even put the glass back in there, since I can pop the glass in and out so easily. When I blew out the air tubes, there was a fair amount of rust came out of there, but I didn't see any dead spiders or large debris, so it probably would have been okay. It's got kind of a neat locking tab there on the top. There we go. It's got a little more aggressive flame on one side than the other, but that's probably more due to the way I cut it than anything else. But it's burning nice. I'll keep the flame low on this one when I burn it, so that it doesn't get too warm on that old red globe. So there we go, folks. 2 more lanterns back in usable condition. The Paul's Leader #2 large fount. It's burning really nice. It got a little carried away and got some soot on the side of the glass, but that's just because I wasn't paying attention to it when I was working on this, and it was burning the flame about an inch higher on that one side. And then the Winfield glass fount good enough lantern is, in my opinion, good enough right now.
Yep.
That is exactly how it'll be. I will burn a tank or 2 of fuel through that. Like I said, I'll set it inside my fireplace where the stink goes right up the chimney. I'll burn a couple of founts of fuel through that in the next week or so, and then it'll go up on the shelf in my bedroom. So thanks for watching, everybody. If you enjoy the content we're putting out and you want to help support our channel, the best thing you could do to help support us is just to let the ads play when they come up. Another good way to help support our channel is to hit the like button, hit subscribe if you haven't done so already, share the video if you know someone that you think would like this, share the video with them, and come on back next week, folks. We'll have a video or something here for you to watch.